Hi, I'm Ty, and this is the Breaking the Chains channel. Most simply, what we do here is focus on making our lives and the world around us better. What we're going to do today is something that's kind of an important subject to me. We're going to dispel some rumors about just how easy real estate investing is. There's a lot of quote-unquote gurus out there that are trying to sell people courses that want to push just how easy this is. Like you just $50 down with no other money to your name and no credit, and you get into real estate, and 5-6 months later, you've made $500,000 and you never have to work again. That's just not reality. And today what we're going to do is cover the 6 biggest myths that gurus try to push on you about real estate investing. Just a little background about myself first. I've always been educated when it comes to real estate. And when I was younger, I read all the get-rich-quick stuff too off real estate, all the no money. Carlton Sheets had these tapes, no money, no down, make $1 million. Maybe some of that stuff might have even worked back into the 70s, but it definitely doesn't work anymore today. About 7 years ago, I came into some money. So full disclosure, I got into real estate investing, received an inheritance. My mother passed away. I sold her house, took the money from that, and ended up going to Jacksonville, Florida and doing some investing. After checking out a bunch of different markets, I invested in Jacksonville for a number of reasons. By the way, this is a really short video. I get into the whole real estate story and everything you need to know in depth. There's like a 2-hour podcast that I have on the channel. I'll link to it below. But that talks about different types of real estate investing and so forth. If you want to make passive income in real estate to retire, the only method is buy and hold. That's pretty much what we're going to talk about today. So I went out to Jacksonville, Florida. I picked up 7 homes. I purchased all of them except for one was a foreclosure rehab. I rehabbed 6 of the homes, held them all as buy and home investments. Just last year, I sold one of the homes. And the purpose of that is to roll the money over into a property in Hawaii. My whole goal has always been to get to either Big Island or Kauai and live going forward from there. As you can tell from the house, I love it. Actually, you can't see the house, but if you watch the videos, you'll see it feels like Hawaii in my own home here. Anyway, I currently hold and have held for the past 5 years now buy and hold properties. I have 6 of them. I have 3 of them with property management right now, and I self-manage the other 3. So having said that, a little bit of background, let's go ahead and hop into the 6 myths that real estate gurus will try to sell you. Number 1, you can get into real estate with absolutely no money. If that is at all possible, in today's day and age, it is an extremely rare situation and it is a long shot. You are going to need money to get into real estate. When I went out to Florida, I was in a pretty hot market, but I was there full time in the market. I was offering cash for all the properties that I was going after, and even making cash offers on properties, I still had a hell of a time finding deals. And the deals that were out there, a lot of times I would make a cash offer on a property, and that property would end up being sold to somebody else for less than I offered without ever responding to my offers. So when it comes to the foreclosure market, when it comes to picking up the deals, there's a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of competition from some very big companies. There's a lot of competition from hedge funds. Now, it is possible to get into real estate with very little down and make money very slowly. If you, like, for example, the first property that I bought was a Fannie Mae property. I paid cash for it, but you could have got into that for a very small down as an owner-occupant. This isn't something that you can flip, and it isn't anything you can rent out, because if you purchase as an owner-occupant, you must live in that property for 12 months. If somebody is new to the business and wants to get in with a little bit of money, I say purchase a property as an owner-occupant, live in it, rehab it. After 12 months, when you can rent it out, rent that property out and repeat, and do the same thing over and over again. If you do that, you will get a jump on investors, because a lot of the foreclosure, without getting into all the different types, I do that in the podcast, but I'm limited for time here. A lot of the places will give owner occupants advantages or a period ahead of investors to make offers. So you can make offers on properties without competing against investors. Now, if you do that, you still need money to get into the property. Rehab's still going to cost money, and it's very, very slow going. Número dos. Live in California, don't know how to say two in Spanish. What the heck's up with that? Número dos. Location does matter. A lot of gurus, you get into this with no money down. Doesn't matter. You can do real estate anywhere. You can't do real estate anywhere. I live in California. There's a reason that I was flying all the way across country to Jacksonville to buy my properties. It's very important that you get into a property, if you're going to do buy and hold, where there's the proper ratio between what you pay for that property and what you rent for that property. A general rule that investors use is something they call the 1% rule, meaning the rent that you get should be 1% of that purchase price. So to give you an example, if I buy a house for $100,000, I should be able to get $1,000 a month for that property. So that's a goal that you shoot for. Now, at the time that I went out to Jacksonville, I'm living in Central California at the moment, and the purchase prices of property, I probably could have picked up a property out here for $220,000 that would have rented for $1,000 a month. Now, when I went to Jacksonville, I'll give you an example of the last property I purchased. I purchased that property for $31,500. Put about $12,000 into it. So let's say I'm into that property for $45,000, and I rented that property out back then for $800 a month. So almost closer to 2%. Depending on the market you're in, it could make it just not feasible. There's a reason why I've been interested in real estate my whole life, but living in California, didn't get into it sooner outside of the fact that it takes money. The market here really sucks for buy and hold investors. If the market that you're in sucks, you're going to have to go to a different market to try to invest effectively in real estate. Number tres, timing the market is absolutely critical. It's really important. Just like location is important, the market does have boom-bust cycles. It goes up and it goes down. We saw that when we had the financial meltdown of the banks. The markets took a huge crash. And because of the markets taking a huge crash, I was able to pick up probably 3 times the properties that I would be able to pick up right now. So when you get into the market is really important. The gurus want you to think you can get in anytime you want, and that's going to be absolutely fine, because they want to sell you courses all the time, and they don't want to go, wow, the market sucks right now, and the market might suck for another 3 or 4 years, so don't do this now. But the reality is, sometimes the market's great, and sometimes the market sucks. When I went out to Florida, the market was absolutely fantastic. That house that I picked up for $31,500, put about 12 into it at the time. I probably could have sold it for about 60, but right now I could easily put that property on the market and sell it probably pretty quickly for about $125,000 to $140,000. So if you want to get that proper purchase price to rent ratio, timing is very, very important. So just to recap the first 3, by the way, as far as time being important, in number 6, I'm going to tell you some reasons why I think the timing right now is absolutely horrible. So we've covered, you need a lot of money, you need to be in the right location, timing is important. For the next one, I'm actually going to have to go to the whiteboard. Hate going to the whiteboard, but I got to write some stuff. So it's like, hey, going into class for the next one. Whiteboard time. So number 4, you're going to need a lot of homes and a lot of time to retire. If you are making small down payments on properties, it's definitely not a short-term retirement plan. Let's go over some stuff and explain what I mean by that. We already talked about that 1% rule. When you're trying to buy a property, you want to make sure that the rent in the area is going to rent for 1% of what you paid for that house. So let's just use an example here. It's real simple. If you paid $100,000 for a house and you are getting $1,000 rent for that property. You're going to put 20% down. If you don't put the 20% down, you're going to be charged mortgage insurance. That's even going to be even higher. You have to put at least 20% down. So you're already putting $20,000 down. Now you're going to finance the $80,000 at 5%. I'm estimating $800 for insurance. I'm just coming up with that. It's about right. I'm going to estimate 1% for taxes. In Florida, it's a little more than 1%. Out here in California, it's a little less than 1%, but let's just go with that. So $80,000 at 5%, $800 insurance, $1,000 in taxes. Your payment, your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance is going to be $579. Now, a lot of people go, right on. So this house is going to make me $421 profit, but that's not the case at all. It's going to be a lot less than that. We've talked about the 1% rule. There's another rule I want to throw at you that's kind of important just to go by. It may be a little bit on the strict side, but it's really important because it can very easily go more the other way, the 50% rule. The 50% rule says to estimate half of your rent to expenses. So if your rent in this case is $1,000, according to the 50% rule, you're going to give away or estimate half of that rent, $500, to expenses. And expenses can very easily hop up on you. Property management is 10 to 12%. When I first got into the business, it was 10%. Now a lot of people are asking 12. People are trying to ask 15. I think they're smoking crack trying to ask 15, but there's a lot of that up there, and that's even going up. So let's go with 10% on that. You're going to have repairs to your properties. You're going to have vacancy. You're going to have turnover costs. When somebody does move out and when that property is vacant, you need to clean that property up. There's going to be higher fees involved with replacing a new tenant in there. Those utilities are going to have to go in your name. So you're covering those utilities until a tenant gets placed. Landscaping, you're covering the costs of that. Now, granted, when I say all that, it sounds like, oh my God, you're saying all this negative stuff. You do get tax benefits and depreciation. Your tenant is paying that mortgage and they're building up equity. You have appreciation, but you're not really even going to realize any of that until you sell the property. And when you do sell the property, you're really going to get whacked on taxes. So $500 to expenses, $579 to principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and $1,000 rent. So going by this example here, you're upside down $79 a month. Now, you're going to need a lot of property. Volume does you no good in this situation. But in a case of scenario, you go, okay, I can manage my own property there, and I don't think these expenses are going to be that. Let's say we're a little strict and you break even. Let's say you even get $100 a month. So you've done all this work and you're out $20,000 for $100 a month. How many properties do you need to acquire at $100 a month to retire off of? An awful lot. Number 5, the gurus want to make it seem like everything is simple, but I'm telling you, it is not going to go smoothly. You are going to have problems in a number of different areas. For one, tenants. You are going to have problem tenants. Now, having said that, I'm going to tell you that the vast majority of my tenants have been absolutely wonderful. Tenant placement is critical. But having said that, I've still had to evict 2 people, and another person I had to negotiate with them. Hey, if you go ahead and just get on out by the first of the month, I won't ding you for your security deposit, because sometimes you just want them out of there so that you can re-rent the place and you don't want the property damaged. So you are going to have problems with tenants. You've got to be somewhat good at negotiating with people in order to make that effectively. And I think you've got to try to make it a win-win situation. If you go into landlording, property management, buy and hold real estate investing, and you're going to try to make it a one-sided deal, and you're going to try to take, you're even going to have more problem with tenants. When you do find good tenants that are good people, that take care of the property, that pay their rent on time, treat them well. Repairs. We just talked about repairs popping up when I was saying on the last one, we were talking about the 1% rule, the 50% rule, and I said you have to budget for repairs. You may have a bunch of great months without any repairs, and suddenly your tenant calls you and your roof's leaking in 3 places and you have to replace a roof. That's another thing when you look at properties, you almost have to overly be on the negative side, trying to look for things that could go wrong. I have had to replace a roof. I was the one that did that. That roof's got about another 10 years. And then the first time it rained, 3 leaks, and I had to replace the roof. I've had to replace 2 air conditioning units, and those aren't cheap. That's like $3,500 to replace the full air conditioning unit. I had to replace a service line. That's the water line from the meter to the house. That was like $1,000. I've had to add gutters and drainage ditches around one of my houses that had a drainage problem. That was some money. In the last couple, I've had to replace a whole shower. That was a couple grand. That was lovely to replace a shower because there was a crack and some water was leaking out underneath that. In the last couple months, I've had to replace a sliding glass door. I've had to replace a water heater. And on the water heater one, that brings up a story. The water heater one, I was blessed. The tenant was inside the house. He's an awesome dude that's handy. And he saw the thing leaking and ran a hose and drained it outside. If he had not done that, I could have had all sorts of water damage. And if you want to talk about the mother of all frustrating repairs, the city of Jacksonville flooded once on my properties one time. What they did is I was between tenants and the water was supposed to be turned off. The water was actually turned off before the tenant left. So he removed his washer, but he didn't turn the hose bib off to the washer because there was no water and he wasn't thinking. Now, the property manager asked to put the water in their name, and the city of Jacksonville came out to turn it on. They turned it on and did not look for registration. They turned it on and drove away and dumped 9,000 gallons inside of my house. You could sue them, which I tried to do, but it's not easy to do that from across the country because you fly out there for your lawsuit. They know you're living 3,000 miles away, and their strategy, right or wrong, is to not pay, so they just keep asking for continuances and stays, and pretty much soon you got to eat it. That cost me over $5 grand to deal with that. So repairs pop up. Contractors, especially if you're in the flipping or the rehab stages, good contractors are very, very hard to find. You can have some ones that are great, and then they move or they're gone. You can have ones that are crap, and a bad contractor can really, really hose you on a job. So don't just assume that all you're going to do is pick up the phone and get the best guy at the best rate that's reliable, that shows up all the time, and that does fantastic work, because contractors are gold. Property management is another thing. You just assume, like contractors, that I'm going to buy this property, I'm going to hire someone to fix it up, I'm going to get a property manager in it, they're going to put a wonderful tenant in it, and it's never going to have repairs. But all 3 of these things go wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4. All 4 of these things can go wrong. And with property management, that is so, so critical. When I was first looking at property managers, I interviewed like 15 different things. I looked over the contracts in detail. And a lot of the contractors want to hose property owners. There's some things in the contracts that you really, really got to be careful for. And when I read the contracts, when I saw certain clauses, I knew they didn't have my best interest. I finally found one property manager who I absolutely loved, and then she quit the place she was working at, and without her there, the place fell to crap. I got another property manager right now managing some properties. I cannot wait for my deal with them to be done so I can take my couple properties away. And I do finally, praise the Lord, finally after 5 years, I found a property manager I've been with that I absolutely love, that's absolutely incredible. Now granted, it's 3 o'clock here, 6:30 Jacksonville time. I had a concern he was supposed to check out yesterday, today, and get back to me with, and the phone hasn't rung. So even when you have incredible property managers, sometimes things don't go as smooth as you would hope them for. So you will have problems. For number 6, I want to talk about appreciation. I've already talked about market cycles and how the market goes up and how the market goes down. But what I want to talk about with number 6 is long-term appreciation. And if you're going to talk about long-term appreciation, I think it going up is somewhat guaranteed, if nothing else, due to inflation. So now why am I saying appreciation is never guaranteed? Because the gurus want to give examples of huge boosts of appreciation over time. In 1970, I bought this house for $50,000 and I sold it for $1 million. And that stuff does happen. But I think that boost was a one-time thing pretty much caused by women's lib, and I don't think we're going to see that happen again. Let me explain what I'm talking about. There's a correlation and a relationship in a healthy market, between median household income and median home price. When people are qualifying you for loans, they say that median home price should not exceed 3 times your median household income. So they want to stay somewhat in the same ballpark for someone to be able to afford a house, so they are tied in together. Women's lib started about 1965, and the whole movement was pretty much over around 1985, meaning the people that were, the impact was going to have changed society by then. Prior to 1965, a lot of women were in the household. They started getting out into the workforce, and by 1985, it had kind of plateaued out. So let's take a look at during that period. In 1965, we had a median household income of $5,500, a median home price of $21,000. In 1985, we saw a big jump. Median household income had gone up to $21,000. Home price had gone up to $82,000. Now what we saw is a direct correlation. Household income had jumped exactly 3.9 times. Home prices had jumped 3.9 times. We've seen that drop since. Over the next decade, they went up 1.5 times, and home prices went up 1.6 times. Up till about 95, things were working smoothly. But what happened after that? The banks started getting involved, and they started wanting to make more money, so they started tweaking things. They started issuing these subprime loans and all kinds of other things they did to the market to inflate a big balloon that shouldn't have been there. And we saw an uneven gap happen then. We saw income go up 1.37. We saw home prices go up 1.75. And then we had that huge crash in the market because home values were much higher than they should be and people couldn't afford them. One thing I do want to point out, when you look at household income, during these 20 years, we saw a huge jump. It went up almost 4 times. Household income has gone down every decade since then. 1.5, 1.37, 1.26. I do not see household income driving real estate in the future. Not only that, but as household income is going down, I think we are still in a massive bubble. So even though real estate prices are kind of hanging tough, they're jumping up to 292 here in 2015. They're all the way up to 342 right now. I think what we're seeing there is the end of a huge, huge cycle, and I expect another big drop. I expect another big drop so much that that's why I sold that property of mine in Florida, and I'm putting that money in the bank, waiting for that drop to hit before I purchase in Kauai. One other thing I want to talk about with relationship to the fact that I feel we are on the end of a bubble and an end of a cycle right now. If you look at 1965, the price of a home was 3.8 times more than the median income. In 75, 3.8. In 85, 3.8. 95, 4.1, same value. What happens in 2005 when we have that huge bubble? It jumps up to 5.2. So in 2005, a home price was 5.2 times median household income. Now the market busted, the market came back up, but where are we sitting in 2015? 5.3. We're sitting higher than we were right before the market busted before, and that's 2015. I went to look things up right now, 342. It's even taken a big jump since 2015. So my point with this is twofold. That huge, stable, market-driven boom that we saw in the 70s, I don't see that happening again. And on the tail end of that, with relation to prices, what I do see us being in right now is a huge bubble on the very tip of a market cycle that incomes cannot afford. So long-term inflation, don't plan on it. And even though I'm going to pull the cycle into this because they do kind of intermingle, huge cycle, plan on some depreciation going forward in the next couple of years. And I think it's going to be going forward for a long, long time. So I just want to wrap it up by saying, I do think, having said all this stuff, that real estate investing is a fantastic way to earn money. But what I hate is people that have no money spending their last $100 on a course when they really don't have a chance of making money under those circumstances. The idea that you're going to go in with no money, no credit, and retire in 6 months is absolutely ridiculous. The best way to look at real estate investing, from my opinion, is when you have money that you want to invest, and you want to invest in a great product that you can actually control. You can't control the stock market. And a product that gives you a lot of great benefits, such as tax advantages and depreciation, and a great investment product that will help you earn passive income. Under those circumstances, real estate is absolutely incredible, but you do need to be really careful when you get into it, that you get into it with the right understanding, because there are a lot of things that can go wrong. If you are interested in any more, again, in the link below, you can see my page where I have that whole podcast. I talk all about real estate investing and my experiences going to Jacksonville, my experiences purchasing the property, what you need to know, what's good, what's bad. I also interview a good friend of mine I met out there whose name was Eric that does flipping. If you do want to get into real estate, maybe I talk about some strategies where you can get into it without a lot of money, and you kind of got to earn your way up and build some income up to the point where you are doing buy and hold investing. Eric was doing that. Eric was absolutely killing it. So thanks for listening, and we will catch you in the next one.